Have you ever stopped to think about how a word from one part of the world ends up being used in a totally different country? Well, today we're going to dive into that, the incredible journey words take as they travel across the globe. It's really a story about culture, connection, and how languages are always changing.
So, let me kick things off with a quick question for you. What do the words shampoo, guru, and bazaar all have in common? I mean, they're all pretty common in English, right? But what's the hidden link between them?
You got it. They're not originally English words at all. They're travelers. They journeyed from Indian languages and found a brand new home in English. And this isn't some rare thing. It's a process that's happening all the time, reshaping pretty much every language on Earth.
Okay, so what do we actually call this whole phenomenon? Well, that brings us right to our first section. What exactly is linguistic borrowing?
And our guide on this adventure is the awesome research of Daughtry Parmar. This mind map here is straight from her work, and it gives you a fantastic sneak peek at all the different factors and types of borrowing we're about to get into. So, at its core, linguistic borrowing is just the process of one language adopting a word from another. You can almost think of it like a cultural exchange program, but for words. Sometimes a word gets adopted exactly as it is, and other times it gets a little makeover to help it fit in with its new language family. But why? Why does this even happen? What makes a language just open its doors and let new words come marching in? That's what we're going to unpack right now. It really boils down to three big reasons. First, you've got necessity. You just need a word for a new thing or a new idea. Then there's prestige, when you borrow words from a culture that's seen as cool or sophisticated. And finally, there's power. This happens when a dominant culture's language starts to influence others, often through things like colonialism or political might. And this slide just lays out that difference perfectly. On one side, you have the dynamic of power, like how English influenced languages in India. But on the other side, you've got simple, practical necessity. I mean, when the internet came along, what were we going to call it? So many languages around the world just went, yep, internet works for us, and borrowed it directly. So how does this all actually work in practice? Well, languages don't just borrow in one single way. There's kind of a real art to it, and there are a few different techniques they use. The most simple and direct way is what we call loan words. This is basically when a language just copies and pastes a word from another language, maybe with a tiny little tweak to the pronunciation so it sounds more natural. And here are some absolute classics you'll recognize. Words like guru, karma, and yoga came straight from Sanskrit. Bazaar and pajama also made the journey from other Indian languages into English. We use them so often now we barely even think of them as being from somewhere else. Okay, now for something a little more sneaky. The loan translation. The fancy word for it is a calque. This is where you don't borrow the word itself, but you borrow the idea by literally translating its different parts into your own language. Brain drain is the perfect example of this. Instead of other languages borrowing the English words, many just translated the concept. The brain meaning the smart people, and the drain meaning them leaving. And they used their own words to create a brand new phrase that meant the same thing. All right, next up, we've got hybrid words. This is where things get really creative. It's like you're taking a piece of a word from one language and stitching it together with a piece from another language to make something totally new. And these are some amazing examples you hear a lot in Indian English. Time pass is a classic. Prepone, it just makes so much sense. It's the opposite of postpone. And batchmate perfectly combines an English word with a concept from the Indian school system. So clever. And finally, we have something that I bet tons of us do every single day, probably without even noticing it, code mixing. This is just when you drop words or phrases from another language right into the middle of your sentence. Like this. You start a sentence in English, please adjust, and then you finish it with a Hindi verb, kar lo. It's not a mistake. It's just that in that moment, that's the most natural, most efficient way to get your point across, especially in communities where people speak more than one language. So what's all this look like today? Well, in our super connected world with the internet and pop culture, linguistic borrowing has basically gone into overdrive. Just think about the words that have traveled the entire globe in only the last few years. Take meme. It's an idea born on the internet, and now pretty much every language has borrowed that word to describe this very specific part of digital life. Or what about vibe? It's such a simple word, but it's spread like wildfire through music and social media, and it just perfectly captures a certain feeling that other words can't quite get.
And then there's ghosting, a term from modern dating culture that everyone, everywhere seems to know now, because it describes a very specific and very modern social experience. And of course, app. It's short, it's simple, and it's understood all over the world. It's the perfect example of how technology doesn't just create new ideas, it creates a universal language for them too. So here's the most important takeaway from all of this. Sometimes people worry that borrowing words is somehow bad for a language, that it pollutes it. But you know what? The research shows the exact opposite is true. Borrowing isn't a weakness. It's actually a sign that a language is healthy, that it's alive and kicking, and adapting to a changing world. It's what makes language so rich and creative. And that leaves us with one final thought to chew on. As our world gets more and more connected, what new words are out there right now, making their big journey? What are the words being borrowed today that are going to define the way we all talk tomorrow?